First, I want to congratulate Isaiah. I had a chance to watch the match. Now, I told him my 9-year-old's now hooked on wrestling. He wanted to watch the rest of the national championships there. But we talk a lot about. You guys have heard me use the phrase consistency over greatness. To go undefeated and to win the national championship, tells me that he's approached every day with the right mindset. That's hard to do. That takes a great deal of discipline to do that. So I'm happy for him and happy for Coach Heffernan. The greatest thing, obviously, I think about getting to the spring is getting a chance to hit the reset button and evaluate really every area of our program and taking a look at it certainly through the eyes of this past season. If you would have caught me a day or two after the Alabama game, I probably would have been a lot of bit maybe emotional and obviously disappointed, which I still am with the way that we played in that game. But I think when a week goes by, you get a chance to reflect and hit the reset button on everything and look at the season as a whole. So before we talk about certainly the last two games, which I'll do that, I think as a coach, and our staff has done this, we've sat down, we've met on several occasions after the season's been over. We'll have an opportunity to meet with our players. We'll have our senior exit stuff as well, and we'll continue to learn and grow through it. But I think I'd be greatly mistaken if I didn't, give a lot of credit certainly to Nana and our older players and our guys for the way that they handled themselves the first 31 games. For them to go through everything they did from the curveball perspective, they saw about every pitch all season. And to handle it the way they did, you don't beat Baylor and Purdue and Maryland and Michigan State and play with the toughness that those kids played with throughout the majority of the duration of the season and put yourself in position, debatedly, I understand, but I think we all know we were in discussion heading into the last week to make the NCAA tournament. Through all those curveballs and the whole next man up deal throughout, I certainly owe Nana, our older players, and our guys a lot of credit for doing that. And you could even debate, as Dustin said to me, we're 20 minutes away maybe at Purdue from getting in. So that's how close we were. So I certainly don't want to take that away from those guys. I think it's important to look at it holistically. It's the reason that I don't watch game film right after losses at night. I sleep on it and I get up the next day because you want to try to be as objective as you can be and try to detach the emotion and look at it for what it is. So I think that's important. In terms of the last two games, I think for me, watching them now and having a chance to kind of take a deep breath and try to evaluate them for what they are, I'm disappointed with our toughness and our togetherness in those two games. I am. I didn't like what I saw there watching the film. That certainly is not the standard that we play with in terms of the toughness piece, the togetherness piece. It wasn't there at the level or standard that it needed to be for us to play well in those last two games, to play better in those last two games. Who's responsible for that? Me and everybody that's involved. Our staff is taking a look at ourselves in the mirror. I'm going to ask our players to do that. I already did that. I'm meeting with them when they get back from spring break. Our support staff, you hear me talk all the time about it taking a village, and you've got to be an NBA All-Star in your role. We've certainly had a lot of success to this point and things where, I feel like everybody's contributed to that because not everybody can do it by themselves. This is a team endeavor. Well, the same thing happens when you look at the last two games and the disappointment that we have. Everyone has to take a look at that. I'm certainly not blaming that exclusively on the players. They certainly have a part in it. Certainly not blaming that exclusively on our staff. We certainly had a part in it. I think everybody's got to take a look at it and figure out why we didn't play with the toughness and the togetherness that we've been accustomed to over our time at Illinois and for, quite honestly, the majority of this season, in the midst of some adversity, which, again, I give those guys credit for that. So now we get a chance to hit the reset button. We get to grow. We get to improve. We get to learn from it. I think that's the most important thing moving forward. Obviously we have, guys that we're adding, recruiting class that we're excited about. The guys we have in our program have to get better and improve in a lot of different areas. But aside from those individual specifics of what we'll address with each player and the improvement areas, whether it's within our program, our organization, our players, for me, the most important thing heading into this spring is competitiveness and selflessness. Those two things are very, very, very important to me. I want everyone who's in our organization to understand that it takes sacrifice and that we're playing for the I. And not the I meaning me, the I that's on the jersey that stands for Illinois. I also want them to understand that the competitiveness that they played with for the majority of the season, as I try to tell them, every game is different. It's a separate entity. You've heard me say that before, and it is. And you have to make a conscious choice every day, every game, and every practice to play with the type of toughness that is our standard. I'm not going to come off that standard. We're not deviating from that. We're going to stick with our plan and continue to move the thing forward. This spring we've got recruiting. This spring we've got opportunities to meet with our players. This spring we've got opportunities to work out our players. Summer's going to be very important for this team. Our foreign trip is going to be a great opportunity for us to continue to develop that competitive toughness and that sacrificial attitude that we have to have top to bottom, as well as giving guys like Tracy and Finke some opportunity to play when they didn't get to this past year. So I think that part's good. So, for us right now, it's about moving forward is what it's about. But I do think it's important that you always have to learn from every circumstance that you're in. And we're certainly going to take the time to do that and add the players to that equation when they get back from spring break. Questions?
Do you have any idea why the last couple of games with the season on the line that the team would show up that flat and not play to the level you wanted to in such important games?
Yeah, it's a choice. I just said that earlier. I mean, it's a choice. I'm not going to, make any excuses. We've got to play at that competitive toughness level like we did against, we're not in the situation we're in with a week to go in the season if we didn't do that for 31 games. Okay, and you guys can go back and look at all the different curveballs that was thrown. But at that point, with about a week to go, and like Dustin says, a 20-minute half, considering where we were at, done a pretty good job. Obviously, we didn't finish as strong as we needed to, and that's what we've got to take a look at right now. We're not accustomed to that. It's not been who we've been. So it's good. I mean, we've got to learn from it. We've got to get better. And I think everybody has to look themselves in the mirror and find ways to improve. But I think it's a mindset. I think it's a choice. I tell them all the time the greatest gift God gave us is the gift to choose. You've got to choose to be tough and together every day regardless of circumstance. I thought our guys did that for the most part. Unfortunately, I did not think we had that level of toughness and togetherness that we needed to play the way that we're accustomed to playing in Season 3 and Season 4.
Well, the NIT, I think I asked you how you felt the guys were going to come out for that game. Did you feel that coming maybe?
No, because I thought we had practiced pretty well, really well. I thought that, and certainly, one thing I hesitate saying, and obviously we're wanting to play better, but I do want to certainly give Michigan and Alabama credit. They played well. Okay, I don't want to take anything away from how their kids played, the energy they played with, the execution. I'm not trying to do that at all. I'm talking more about the things that we can control. I do think that, the game, they came out, they hit us pretty hard early. I thought the first half was we had a stretch there, Marcus, where it was about 8 to 9 minutes where they went on that run. That was, the second half, I thought we battled. We got a ton of offensive rebounds, had a ton of deflections. We did. But at that point, it's a 40-minute game. You have to value every possession. At that point, we were playing and digging ourselves out of a hole. It was such an uphill battle. It was going to be difficult. I think how you start games is important. I've always said that. I think you got to try to set the rules. We've done that a lot, and in those two games, and that one in particular, I didn't think we did that very well.
Selflessness, was that an issue at all at any time this year?
I think it's always an issue with any team, Jeremy, when I look back and think about this past year, because whether we like to admit it or not, God has built all of us to have selfish desires to a degree. Everybody has to check individual or personal agenda at the door. That's what we talk about. I thought our first 2 years teams, despite all of our quirks, and we all got them. Okay, no one's perfect. Okay, I thought we were able to come together better at that time than what we did this past year. Towards the end there, the last 2 games. So, we've got to get that back. I know what that looks like. I know what it smells like. I've been a part of it. Obviously you watch our coaching tree here late in the year. I know what that looks like, and we've got to get that back. We're not going to come off of our standards. At the end of the day, the guys have to make a conscious choice to make mental and physical toughness and selflessness and sacrificing for Illinois the 2 most important priorities. Do we have those things at the level of the first 2 years teams going into Season 3 and Season 4? Obviously, those things showed up. They reared their head in those 2 games. Not too long before that, when I thought I'll be honest with you, I thought we were hitting it again when we played Northwestern here at home. Because Northwestern at that point was playing really well. Won a game right after that, again, against Michigan. Northwestern did right after our game. They were playing really well. And I thought we played about as well as we played all season on both ends of the floor. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get that competitive energy, toughness, togetherness that we had in that game to continue to mirror that in games or halves after. At times we did during those games, but I think at this time of year, when you're talking Season 3 and Season 4, you got to do it much more consistently than what we did.
When you talk about the losing the toughness and the togetherness at the level at which you want to play, do you consider that the Michigan and Alabama game, or do you consider that starting at the last couple minutes of the first half?
It's interesting, Tup, because, again, I talked about this earlier. Each game's a separate entity. Like, for example, even in the Michigan game, we get hit 14-2. LeBron and Jalen come in the game, give us a ton of energy and competitiveness, and we take the lead in that game. So I can't sit here and say, hey, all 40 minutes, man, we didn't bring it. That's untrue. It's not truthful. We didn't. Same thing at Purdue. I thought we did some pretty good things. We had a stretch there at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half that was the difference in the game. At the end of the game when we were behind and we went to the diamond press and cut the lead, do I think we were playing with some toughness and energy? Absolutely. No question. No question. Do I think to get the number of offensive rebounds that we were able to get in the last game, do you have to play hard and with energy to do that, at least for portions of it? Absolutely. But at this level, you have to do that consistently. And I just think our team this year did that better prior and for the majority of the year, quite honestly, even with different lineups and rotations. So that part's the part probably tough that's the most disappointing.
Do you anticipate any roster? Do you anticipate everybody coming back?
At this juncture, I haven't had any of the meetings yet, Rob. Obviously, we're going to have some pretty candid conversations next week with everybody, just like we have with our staff. For me, again, the pinnacle for me right now, the 2 things I'm focused on are competitiveness and selflessness. And so we'll have some conversations next week and have more direction at that time.
For next year, would Austin, Tracy, or Kendrick possibly learn the 3 to be able to,
We won't make decisions in terms of what we're doing with those guys until we have our whole team intact.
Do you think that any of those 3 guys could play the 3 position?
Say that again now.
All 4 positions with Austin, Kendrick, or
Tracy Abrams at the 3, probably not going to happen. Kendrick played it this year. Colbert got better, but more than likely will continue to play in the front court. Lauren. Everybody. Yeah, that's great for us. Obviously every chance you get an opportunity to do that, Lauren's important because you get to build your team earlier than normal, and it's a great opportunity. But this year is a little bit even more perfect timing for us because not only do the freshmen and the newcomers get to go, But Tracy, by that time, Lord willing, if we continue on the track we're on now, will be able to play. So he'll get a couple games, 2, 3, 4 games under his belt after coming off the ACL. A guy like Michael Finke, who we made the decision to redshirt, gets a chance to play some games, gets a chance to get 10 extra days of practice. So, I do think it's going to be very, very beneficial to us.
Tracy, who are your leaders next year?
Well, obviously, Tracy's a big one. We need some other guys to step up in that area. We do. There's 2 parts to it, I think. One is having the ability to mirror what we're about in terms of body language, in terms of, how you act, your actions, and then the other part of that's vocal. I think the one thing, obviously, about Tracy is he has both. Ability to be vocal, ability to lead by example. I do think the sit-out year, he and I have had some conversations. I think he sees things a little bit more now. He used to see things exclusively through the players' eyes. I think now he sees things through players' and coaches' eyes. Like he'll say to me or Jamal or Paris, like, wow, like, man, now I kind of see what you're talking about. Like he's gotten a different viewpoint and perspective. I think because of that, he'll be a better leader and ultimately a better player.
John, the 5 position with Nana gone, obviously is going to look a lot different.
Sure. Well, obviously from a defensive perspective, it's hard to replace Nana with one guy. You're talking about a guy that maybe he and one other guy coached over 20-some years, affected the game on the defensive end as much as those guys. So we're certainly going to miss that. I think certainly Darius Paul could be a candidate to play up front and can be a multi-positional guy. Obviously Maverick, Austin, Finke, and then, we'll see what happens with recruiting.
This tour, because we've just been given this information about sightseeing for fans or anybody else. What kind of interaction should people expect to have with you or the team if they followed you around for 9 days?
Well, they'll have, obviously, when you take a foreign trip, I want our guys not only to get better as a team, Rob. I've always approached those from the standpoint of the 10 days of practice kind of belong to me and the staff. And then once we get over there, we're going to play games. We're going to play the right way. But I also want it to be a cultural experience for those guys. And obviously anyone that comes on the trip gets an opportunity to interact with the team probably at a little different level than they would otherwise, in terms of intimacy and how close they'll be to our team. And, we look forward to it. I mean, we look forward to the trip. I know our guys are looking forward to the trip. Tracy and I have talked about it on a couple different occasions, and it's going to be a great opportunity for us, I think, to continue to advance the program and move forward.
I think your staff returns intact, John?
I think so. Do you know something I don't know, Tom? Those guys are great. I love our staff. We're very close, obviously, and for us, as I said earlier, we're going to continue to stay the course. I mean, we're not going to deviate. From our plan. We're not. We're going to be who we are. I think that's important. My dad and others have taught me that, and I think that's important. We're going to be who we are. We're going to evaluate and find ways to get better. No different than any other off season. Obviously we'll pinpoint some areas. Again, for me, the 2 here, a week to 10 days after, for me, are competitiveness and selflessness.
John, how can this roster that you have with new guys, Tracy back, how does that fit your offense better, if at all? Do you think we'll see more of?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily fit your offense, fit your defense. I mean, for us, I think, the one thing I've learned in coaching is you have to be able to adapt. And this year was certainly a poster child for that. Okay, so adapting, whether it's set plays you run and, who you're running them for and how you play. And I do think that, hopefully whatever style we pick that best fits our team to help our team be the most competitive possible, that we're able to play that style, Lord willing, from beginning to end. Hopefully we're able to do that. This year that was a little bit of a challenge, but at the end of the day for us, I think a coach's job is to try to adapt and put those guys in position to be successful and to play to their strengths.
that, and does that do anything?
Well, we always, we certainly pay attention. I have a lot of respect for our fans. I'll be honest with you. One of the reasons we were in the situation we were in with a week to go was because of our fans. They were off the charts. I mean, our building was terrific. They were great. So they really helped us at home. It was one of the things that we talked about heading into the year where we wanted to play better at home than we did the first 2 years. Tracy, Nan, and I talked about it, and we did. We did. Now, a big part of that was those fans. They were awesome. So, I understand that. If I'm a fan, I understand disappointment. I get it. I'm not. But at the end of the day, does that change who I am, who we are, what we do, how we do it? We're always looking for ways to get better. But at our core and at our foundation, we believe in what we're doing, and we're going to do it that way. With some wrinkles here, hey, we learned from that. Let's maybe go right. Let's go through the right door rather than the left door. We're certainly going to do that. But at the end of the day, who we are at our core is going to continue to be who we are.
How does that change the recruiting message when you've got social media that's angry?
Well, I can't control social media, Rob. I mean, I can't control that. It is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, I think that, I could go on a total tangent about my thoughts on social media, but I won't. I'll stay centered in center field rather than go to left field and right field. But it is what it is. When you're a player at the University of Illinois, you're a coach at the University of Illinois, one of the great things about the basketball here is that people care a great deal. Okay? I would much rather that be the case, than the other case where there's apathy. So, I'm glad they care. I'm glad they care enough to, write about it, tweet about it, Facebook about it, comment about it, email about it. Now, at the end of the day, do I necessarily always agree with every viewpoint? No, but that's okay. I mean, we're all entitled to our own opinion.
LeBron obviously showed flashes this year of what made him a really highly touted recruit. Also had issues with the emotions. How do you teach him to harness that? Is this just something he has to deal with maturity? Teach that in him?
Yeah, we're working at it. Obviously, I have a saying with the players: in pressure situations, your habits take over. And I love his competitiveness. I love his emotion. I love his passion. Never ever, even down the stretch with him, would I ever say, man, he's not competing. He's just not wired that way. I love that about him. But obviously he's got to channel that a little bit better, and we're going to work on that. That's going to be one of his areas certainly that we'll discuss next week, and he knows that. LeBron's not one of those guys who deliberately wants to hurt our team. LeBron wants to compete, and he wants to win. So I'd rather it be that way and try to scale him back than the other way and try to get him to play with motor. You never have to worry about him playing with motor.
Can Maverick play at this level and compete for you? He's been slow to develop. He's played behind a guy that was out there a lot.
He did. He played obviously behind an elite level defender. He's got improvement areas. We're going to target those again next week, and he's got to compete and earn the opportunity that you're talking about. Does he have tools? Sure. He's got size. He's got hands. He's got touch, as we've all seen. But, at the end of the day, and I always say this, players play players. He's got to have a great offseason.
Backboard more offensively.
Who, Mav? I don't know. I mean, I look at analytics and where he shoots in the percentages of what we call A range, B range, C range, and, he actually shoots a pretty high percentage. Late in the year he didn't shoot as high a percentage in the A range, Rob, but, he's very good in the mid-range, as we all know. He shoots a very good 12 to 15-foot jump shot. Very good. Looks like a laser, but it goes in. So we'll take a look at it. I'd like for him to employ pivoting more, we've talked about it as a staff, shot faking more, finishing through contact more. Those are all things we're going to work with him in the offseason on.
Obviously, you got to get him on campus first. What are your early expectations for Coleman Lands, and how do you see him fitting in the mix?
Well, obviously, we'll get those guys here. They'll get here this summer like they would normally, and on top of that, they'll get the 10 days of practice plus the trip, which is awesome. So we're excited to get them here. I think with freshmen, them, obviously, and build relationships with them through the recruiting process, them, their families, their circle. But to have the chance to interact with them, Derek, every day, I think you learn a lot about guys. I'm looking forward to that opportunity to have them on campus, have them be a part of what we're doing academically, basketball-wise, be a part of the campus community. They can't get here soon enough. So, for me, I think a big key, and Jeremy alluded to it earlier with Abrams, and hopefully we've got guys that have now been here 2-3 years that got to step up in the leadership department. I'm not pinning it all on Tracy, although he certainly wouldn't mind that because he's tough. But at the end of the day, we need more guys as we keep building this thing with our culture to step up, and that will help those younger guys. Because what you want to do, Derek, is turn that over to those guys when they become older. And right now we got to continue to talk about, I think right now, our competitiveness and our selflessness. I'm going to continue to beat that drum.
Where is Tracy physically? What can he do now?
He's much better off now, Tup, than what I would have anticipated at this point. He's done a good job. Paul Schmidt's done a great job. He should be cleared to shoot here on his own soon. He's done a lot of lateral movement drills with Schmitty. He's done some north-south sprinting drills with Schmitty. He shoots free throws with us at the end of the practices. He comes in and does his treatment and rehab and does it with does a great job with it, being disciplined in detail with that. So hopefully here, I'm hoping I keep pushing Schmitty. I think he kind of gets what I'm saying. When's he cleared? I'm pushing him, which I guess is my job, and Schmitty's job is to tell me to back off. But hopefully here sooner than later.
You look around college basketball, and some of the guys you've gone after making a huge impact at the point guard position.
Sure.
When you look around, why do you think you've struggled that with some of the success you've had?
You got to be in the arena. We've been in the game. We've been in the arena. I'm not going to apologize for that. We're going to recruit really good student athletes here at the University of Illinois. But I have no hard feelings. I mean, I'm happy for them. I hope they play well. I know a lot of them and their families, and but at the end of the day, for us, the one thing I've learned, and my old boss at NC State used to say this: it's not about who you don't get, Jeremy. It's about who you get. I don't know. I hope so. I think Ray, obviously, we all know his talent, his athleticism, his strength, his hands. I think Ray's made a lot of progress and improvement as a player, over the 3 years. Most importantly, I think he's made a huge amount of progress as a person and student coming here. So, I certainly think he has an opportunity. Obviously, it's got to be the right fit, the right situation. We're going to talk with those seniors next week. I know Ray will continue to work at it. Ray has always been a guy that's been willing to do extra, comes in and does extra. I see him all the time. You look at his shooting numbers from an efficiency standpoint, this year were the best they've ever been in his career. And it's not surprising because of how hard he worked.
John, you mentioned togetherness a lot, and he wasn't there at the end. Was it there all season? Did something change?
I think you have to create it numerous times when your roster changes to the level that it did this year. Everybody has injuries, or a guy gets injured, or a guy misses a game or 2 or 3. But, it was a little bit more this year, which is okay. I mean, that's part of it. I know the Bulls have gotten hit with it. Michigan got hit with it. I mean, it happens. But I do think, and I've always said this, I think as soon as you add or delete one player from a team, as soon as you add or delete one player from a rotation, as soon as you change a rotation, there is a ripple effect. I'm not saying it's always negative. Sometimes positive. It happens. It's just the way that it is. It's the human element of the game. That's why I've said before, I laugh at people when they say, hey, this guy's back next week. He hadn't played in 3 or 4 months. I think most people are guilty of thinking like he's going to be the exact same player as soon as he touches the court as he was right before he got hurt or right before he was out. That's not how this works. It's not how it works. So I think that part was challenging. We learned a lot. Unfortunately, for us, maybe if we'd have had, although I thought we had it close to captured again for another time right about Northwestern, if we'd have had, you never know. If we'd have had a couple more games, then maybe because our guys, they want to compete, they want to win. I mean, it's just a matter of figuring it out and connecting the dots. It's a team game. It's a team game. And the chemistry, I think, is a very fragile thing for any coach, trying to connect those dots and have those pieces working in concert together. Obviously, I thought we did that well at times. Thought we had to recreate it a few times. And the last 2 games, I didn't think it was as strong.
I think most people are struggling. Ray, when he was healthy and good to go, the team's record wasn't as good, even though he might have played well. I mean, have you tried to figure that out?
No, well, I can tell you that's not completely on Ray. That's partly on Ray, and that's partly on teammates. It's partly on everybody involved. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to any player on our team to point that at one guy. This is not, as Isaiah was up here earlier, wrestling. This is not track and field event, the 100 meters. This is not golf. From the perspective of the individual champion. I know there's a team aspect to that as well. But it's not. So there's connecting those dots that I'm talking about, and everybody's responsible for that. It's not one guy. It's not one player.
Fair, though, to, without attaching blame, because it was Ray, because it was your leading scorer, your leading rebounder, your best perimeter defender, he's in there, he hits the winning shot against Missouri, now he's out, and now everybody's got to adjust and change, now he's back, and because of the amount that he contributed to the whole thing, that became more difficult for everyone to make those adjustments?
I think it's certainly part of the ripple effect I just mentioned. I mean, Tate was sick. We had a big week that week. We had Michigan State and Iowa, and he's out. So again, I'm not trying to point the direction off of Ray, but there's a lot of factors now. It's not just one. I think when you're dealing with a team dynamic, it's team, and it's the responsibility of, when a guy's injured or out and he comes back, as I said to the team, it's the responsibility of the staff, support staff, and team to support Ray, in this case, the questions, transition, and it's Ray's job to adjust to the team. Does that take some time? Yeah, it does. Sometimes you're not allotted as much time as maybe that you would like for that to take place.
Do we have any questions on the phone lines for Coach?
Hi, Coach. Doug Bouchon from Rivals.
Go ahead, Doug.
How are you?
Doing great, Doug.
About the offense, is anything in the offseason you're going to look at tweaks to the ball screen offense? It seemed like the ball sticked a little bit, and you had some trouble producing open looks.
Yeah, we're for sure going to evaluate. We do every year. I'll watch every single offensive possession times 10, in different ways and in the flow of a game and a certain set play together and everybody's shots and where they got them. And, I do that every spring. So certainly we'll look at it. We have changed and adapted all 3 years, to be honest with you, in terms of what we've ran in transition, what we've ran as sets, what we've flowed into after transition offense or after set plays. And we'll take a look at it again, knowing who we have coming back. Obviously, I think the 10 days of practice this summer will really help us as well, for us to get a gauge for the freshmen and, Darius coming back, newcomers, of what that's going to look like and how we utilize their skill sets, their strengths, and how that factors into the equation of what we do, not only offensively, but defensively.
When do Darius and your high school recruits show up, John?
June, summer.
And the Belgium trip, what do you think, 4 or 5 games?
Probably 3 or 4. Top. We're still working on solidifying some of those and on what days.
When the practice that you have available to you this summer?
We have 10 days. I've done it differently a little bit. I've been part of 2 as a head coach and then others as an assistant. It depends on meaning, like if we're in school, Lauren, obviously academics always take precedent. If the overlap is while we're in school, then it'll probably be afternoon stuff. One year we had it where there were some days where school was out and we were done with school. And then you could go a morning session and an afternoon session, and with school being out, you're not capped by NCAA compliance hours. We've got a little bit there of a hybrid with this team. I believe the last week of the summer school we'll have some of the practices, and then the next week will be no school as we finish up some of those practices. We'll have 1 year I had an offensive practice in the morning, a defensive practice in the afternoon. We had, film, and that was 1 year we took a trip to the Bahamas when I was at Ohio. So I think it depends on where you fit it in. In our case, it's a hybrid deal where basically about the even number of practices are going to be while we're in school, finishing up summer school, and the other half of them will be while we're out of school. So I'll take a look at that, and I'll decide what's best in terms of format.
Is this in addition to what you would normally get if you weren't going on a trip?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Summer's 2 hours a week without the trip.
So basically, you've got roughly 20 days, if you count the 10 in Belgium.
Yes, if you count the foreign trip, yes. Yeah, while we're actually there is what you're talking about, Lauren? Yeah.
Anything else here?
Do you know what Aaron's going to do next year?
I don't yet. Obviously pulling for Aaron for cause, and we're going to do what we can certainly to help him. Don't know yet at this juncture.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.